Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to a brand new edition of Friday Night Live with me, Abdul Akbar, sitting in place for Hafiz Shaban this week. It is, of course, Friday, 21st of May, 2021. And I'm your host, Abdul Akbar. And we're going to be having an action-packed show tonight. I hope everyone had a fantastic Ramadan and a fantastic day of Eid just over a week ago. It's been a while, and I really do hope that everyone is having a fantastic time so far, especially in the UK. Now, as you know, it's been a very, very challenging time for lots of people around the world, not to forget our Palestinian brothers and sisters who have really been going through a challenging time. Their last few days of Ramadan were really put in a spin, and we'll be talking about that situation in Palestine and in Israel at 7 p.m. tonight. And if you're listening back, that's in about an hour's time today on Friday, the 21st of May. So do stay tuned to that. On the program as well tonight, I've got a very special brother with me as well. Of course, he is none other than Zafar Iqbal Saab, and he is on the line as well. Assalamu alaikum, Zafar Saab. How are you?
Walaikum salam. Alhamdulillah, I'm good. Yourself?
Alhamdulillah. Good to hear your voice, Zafar Saab. I hope you're doing well. And I really hope you and your family are keeping well in this very challenging time, shall we say, Zafar Saab?
Indeed, likewise. I'm sure you're staying out of trouble and keeping well, mashallah.
Alhamdulillah.
Looking good too, I must say.
Jazakallah khair, Jazakallah khair. I've got my plant next to me, so if anyone's tuned in to Facebook Live, you can actually watch us live as well, watch our guests live as well. I think Zafar Saab hasn't quite put his camera on yet, but we're going to try and get him to do that if he's up for it throughout the course of the next 2 hours, which is how long we are with you tonight, listeners. And coming up in a moment, we're going to be speaking to a really special lady, a lady that took part in the Ramadan festivities with us and the fasting more specifically. We're going to be speaking to Dana Quinto in a moment, and I'll tell you more about her and what she did in a few seconds time. But also coming up in around 6 minutes, we're going to be talking about the Indian variant. Now, all of you have, I'm sure, enjoyed the new freedoms that the government announced just on Monday this week. And I'm sure many of you have had a chance to go and visit friends and family and take benefit of the extended freedoms that we've enjoyed over the last few days, which is fantastic. However, there is a, should we say, a curveball, a COVID curveball, let's call it, because the Indian variant is currently causing problems all over the UK, and the numbers are actually doubling, tripling. They are increasing on a daily basis, and right now we have over 3,000 cases of the Indian variant in the UK. My question is, now that we have the Indian variant, what's the situation next, and how can we protect ourselves from this? Of course, we'll be speaking to Lucy Haber, Director of Public Health, and also Dr. Shabina Goyum, who has a lot of expertise being an ENT, ear, nose and throat surgeon. She'll be giving us her perspectives on the variant and how we can best protect ourselves. So we're going to come on to that in a moment. But listeners, one other thing that's really important in the next hour of tonight's program, so in roughly 1 hour's time, we're going to be having a Palestine special. Now, I know that everyone listening to tonight's program will have heard of the last 1 week plus of issues and challenges and fighting and killing, frankly, that's been going on in Israel and on the Gaza Strip. We're going to be analyzing the situation. We're going to be speaking to experts on both sides to really get to grips as to what's going on, why have so many people died on the Palestinian side, and what triggered this issue. So we've got people from Friends of Al-Aqsa. We've also got Dr. Melanie Garson, who is an expert in conflict resolution. I can't wait to talk to her. We've also got somebody who is from Palestine speaking to us on the program. And finally, we'll be joined by Hamza Ali Shah, who is an expert on politics, and he's going to be giving us his take on the situation in Israel. We're going to be trying to fathom everything that's going on tonight here on Friday Night Live. Stay tuned, listeners, with me, Abdul Akbar, and Zafar Iqbal Saab. Don't forget, we're beaming out to the good people of Luton and surrounding areas tonight. and also to the good people of Peterborough, Sheffield, Derby, and Nottingham through our partner stations across the nation. Don't forget, you can also join us on facebook.com/InspireFM Luton. And don't forget, you can also call us live on 01582 481 822. I'm sure we're going to get lots of calls for the next hour of tonight's program. But right now, I want to go straight to our first topic of tonight. And I'm delighted to be joined by Dana Quinto. Nice to see you, Dana. Thanks for tuning in to Inspire FM and Friday Night Live, and of course through our partner stations like Salam Radio across the UK as well. Dana, how are you this evening?
Salam alaikum, Abdul. Salam alaikum, Zafar. I'm very well, thank you. And hello to everyone. Salam alaikum, everyone. Thanks for inviting me. I'm very well. Belated Eid Mubarak to everyone. As you rightly said, it's been a week.
Thank you.
And we're hoping that everyone's having a fantastic time. Yes, it's good to be here.
So Dana, you did something very special. We're getting a bit of an echo on your side. I don't know if that's the sound maybe is a bit too high on your end or something. But okay, it's a bit better. It's much better now. I don't know. Hopefully you can still hear me. Oh, that's fantastic. So Dana, you did something very special. You're actually somebody who's an expert in family law. You're a lawyer yourself, is my understanding, and you actually did something quite different this Ramadan. Tell us what you did and why you did it. I'd love to know more.
Yes, so I fasted the full length of Ramadan in solidarity of my team members here at DB Solicitors who were also fasting. So I fasted before a few days, last year, but I thought, I wanted to have the full experience to really understand what my team members are going to go through.
And just to be clear, Dana, you're not a Muslim. You're Christian, correct?
I am Christian. I grew up in the Philippines, which is quintessentially it's a Catholic country in Asia. I'm a non-Muslim, but nonetheless, I fully respect the tradition and religion of my other team members. And this particular occasion, I wanted to do a bit more because from my understanding, it's a very solemn experience. It's physically, emotionally challenging as well. But I really truly wanted to understand, so I can be a better colleague, I can be a better team member, I can be a better leader. And I was a bit interested in the endurance side of it all. But I'll be very honest, I did not have great expectations of myself, whether I can last the whole length. I just wanted to take it day by day, and I had been truly moved by the support, by the solidarity, and
amazing.
By feeling that I was truly part of their own experience.
Tell me, Donald. It's amazing hearing this, and I love the solidarity point. I have many Christian and Jewish friends that have also fasted, not the whole month, mind you, but they have fasted in solidarity as well with me and my Muslim faith. But I'd love to ask you very quickly, what was your key takeaway? Like, what did you take away having fasted the entire month of Ramadan in solidarity with your colleagues? Like, how did you feel, and what did you take away from the experience?
First of all, much respect to my Muslim brothers and sisters who do this day year in, year out. It wasn't an easy experience at all. But just like with anything in life, you learn to adapt, you learn to adjust, you learn to find kindred spirits in that experience. And looking back as I go through it, it was like life in miniature. It was like, you go through a period of scarcity, you try to find what's in it in you, deep, to get through it. And you go through a period of feast as well, of a really good period. And then you learn to be generous when you're having a good time. And that's when That's when you enjoy it a bit more. And all in all, really, you have to really apply your energy, because it's only finite. We only have so much of it, to things that truly matters most. And with that was, for me, that was I did not, that came through probably week 3 or week 4, that when you're looking at it, it's probably a miniature experience of life.
Amazing. Amazing. We want to move on, but Dana, what an amazing way to start off our show post Ramadan, because we normally take a break during the Ramadan period, and it's an amazing, we're just honored to have you on this program and start off our new series of Friday Night Live with your good self. I'll tell you one thing, and fasting, in the Quran, Dana, and this is for listeners as well, fasting in the Quran, I'm no expert of the Quran. I read it a lot in the holy month of Ramadan, and the month of Ramadan is when the Quran was actually revealed. And in the Quran, it says, fasting has been prescribed for you and for those before you, so that you may gain God consciousness, so that you may build that consciousness and that connection with God. And what's really interesting, when people ask me, why did I fast? Or, Akbar, you're so crazy, why did you go and fast? The answer I give them is actually fasting is a very private thing, because nobody actually knows you're fasting. Nobody knows you're not eating unless, they see you not eating at the table with them. It's a very private thing, whereas lots of forms of worship, including when Muslims pray or when Christians or when Jews pray, you can see us in prayer. Whereas when you're worshipping through fasting, nobody knows you're actually worshipping. It's a very private, individual thing. And I just think that's a connection to God that only you can create by having the fasting and that worship that you're conducting. And I'm just so amazed, and may God bless you, Lucy, Dana, for actually connecting with us as a community and showing your solidarity with the Muslim community. And I hope many of us can learn from your example as well. So thank you so much for sharing your experience. I really appreciate it.
No, the pleasure is absolutely mine, and I think kudos to everyone who's really supported, who's really checked in if I'm, if I'm still okay, if I'm, and if if I'm, how I'm experiencing it, and as you pointed out, there's something truly solemn about it that only you as a person, when you're experiencing it, it's your own personal journey inside. No matter what your religion, and most especially, I truly accept, the Quran has, words about it. But I just want to say thank you so much for, for letting me share the journey.
Thank you.
And for also, for also being inspirational yourselves, guys, for what you do here.
Thank you.
At the end of the day, I think all of us just want to have that positive experience of life, and thank you. Thank you
so much. Dana, keep us in your prayers, and we really appreciate you joining us on this show. All right, listeners, this is Friday Night Live. Mashallah, that was Dana Quinto. She's a lawyer with a local firm, and she's actually been fasting in the month of Ramadan, as you heard, to show solidarity with her Muslim colleagues. What an amazing person. I mean, what a special person to really want to do that and fast the entire month of Ramadan when you're not even Muslim. All I can say is may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless her and, bring her closer to goodness. With that, we're going to move straight on to the next part of tonight's program, because we have another topic that we want to go straight onto. And I'm really lucky to be joined by two very special guests, in addition to Zafar Iqbal Saab, and of course the two special guests are on the line right now. And listeners, don't forget you can tune into facebook.com/InspireFM Luton and watch the program live. You can see my guests live. They are looking gloriously glorious on the line, so fantastic. Myself not included, of course, absolutely not. But I'm joined by Lucy Hubber, who's the Director of Public Health, I'm assuming for Luton Borough Council. Lucy, correct me if I'm wrong. Good evening to you. And also Dr. Shabina Qayyum, who is previously an ENT surgeon and has worked in emergency medicine. And she's also a member of the British Islamic Medical Association and has delivered lots of health talks to local mosques. So can't wait to talk to both of you ladies. Let me start with you, Lucy, especially with the situation on the ground in Luton right now. Of course, we're hearing lots about this so-called Indian variant that's really caused havoc around the world, especially in India, but it's also made its way into the UK now. We can go on and speak forever about whether or not it was right for this government to actually stop folks traveling in from Bangladesh and Pakistan, but actually keep the borders open for a couple of weeks for India and let a few folks in with the disease and with the illness. And now we can see that this is spreading. What's the situation like in terms of the Indian variant, to your knowledge, in Luton right now? Lucy.
Hi, well, good evening. Thank you so much for having me on. And you're right, that has been just the hot topic this week, hasn't it? It's been on every news outlet, it's been on every front page. I think the most important thing we have to remember is that viruses naturally change, they naturally mutate, we get different variations, and that's why we have the flu jab every year, because the flu virus changes every year and we have to have a different vaccine. What we are learning from this virus is that these changes sometimes are quite small. So the vaccine still works, so we can be really confident in the vaccine. But some of the way it changes is perhaps how easily it's passed between people or how poorly it makes you. And so this variant that was first identified in India, you're right, has caused just such huge loss. And our thoughts and prayers obviously have to be with the people who've been so significantly affected by that. But also what we're seeing here is that it is beginning to take the place of what was called the Kent or the English variant, which is the one that caused that big spike in cases over the Christmas period in January and February. What's different about us in the UK is our vaccination. And we are in a very different position from India because we've got so many of those really vulnerable people vaccinated. And I think yesterday it was announced that 70% of the adult population have now had a first dose of vaccine. And it is looking like that's making a difference, that the vaccine is really effective and is reducing down the worst impact of this.
And Lucy, just a question on Luton specifically, and maybe surrounding areas. How are we seeing the rates of infection in Luton? Because I know we're seeing it go up across certain parts of the country, like, for example, even in Bedford, there's surge testing happening right next door. What's the situation in Luton right now, to your knowledge?
So in Luton, we've had about, I think it was 16 cases as of this morning, but those 16 cases are since March. So they're not all current cases of COVID. And for each of those cases, we look at each case, we look at the actions that need to happen. And very often, if they're travel related, there's not much more we need to do, because what we know about the population in Luton is how good they are at getting themselves tested and self-isolating. You know, that's one of the reasons that we've managed to control the virus in Luton when we've had those high peaks. Having said that, our cases have come down. We were very high and they have come down. We are beginning to see a bit of an increase. So we might be beginning to see the beginnings of some transmission of the virus, or it could be the impact of opening up of the roadmap. So we are looking at every single case in great detail to make sure that we are as controlling it as much as we can do. We've seen the impact in Bedford. We've seen how quickly it spread, particularly amongst school children, and we don't want that for Luton.
Thank you for that, Lucy. Let's go to Dr. Shabina Qayyum. So, Dr. Shabina, you're no stranger to one of our partner stations, Salam Radio, and you run one of the health shows on Salam Radio. So thanks for joining us here on Inspire FM as well. So, Dr. Shabina, regarding the Indian variant, the rumor is that, or the fact is that it's more transmissible, but the question is, how much more transmissible is it? And what's the best way of protecting myself from this particular variant?
So with any variant, whether it be the South African variant, the Kent variant, and Lucy has already given quite a bit of useful information, and the Indian variant as well, there is no question about still implementing the measures of hands, face, and space. And to get those messages across. Even when we're outside, we've seen that the restaurants are opening. It is still advisable to remain at 2-meter distance. It's still advisable to go in with a mask when you're visiting shops or retail places. And it's still very, very important that we all have a collective responsibility to not only take care of ourselves, whether you're vaccinated or not, but to take care of those individuals that perhaps haven't been vaccinated yet or are vulnerable, and not to forget children who can be transmissible vectors of the virus. So yes, it's very important to still maintain those social distancing measures.
Thank you for that, Dr. Shavina. And also in terms of the transmissibility, because you know how we are in the Asian culture, we are a very family-oriented culture, which is amazing, but sometimes that could be to our disadvantage, especially when it comes to virus transmission and disease and infection, etc., etc. So if I was going to see my parents, for example, would you advise that I still keep the 2-meter distance, even though, you know, you can actually hug, for example, right now, according to government guidelines? If my parents haven't been vaccinated, should I be encouraging them to get straight down to the doctor and make sure they get that jab? And what's your take?
Absolutely. Now, we all know through evidence that people from ethnic minority backgrounds, especially South Asian communities, have been disproportionately affected by COVID-19. And I come from Peterborough, so Peterborough, Luton and Bedford especially have a significant South Asian population. Now, I'd like to commend over here, because I've been seeing the efforts of the MP, Mr. Mohammed Yassin in Bedford, who has actually called for surge vaccination and surge testing in an area of the country that has seen an exponential rise in cases of the Indian variant. And I think that it's really important that we stress on the messages of making sure that people are vaccinated, especially within the South Asian diaspora, and also making it aware to them that because the Indian variant has been identified as a variant of concern, it is even more now important that people from ethnic minority communities, because they're disproportionately more affected, are vaccinated and they go for their vaccination. Of course, it's very important to have that connection with your loved ones and with families. We've just seen Eid, and belated Eid Mubarak to all of you and your listeners as well. We've seen people that haven't been able to spend Eid with their families, but all of us want life to get back to normal. And I think that it's really important that we all do our own bit to follow the guidance. And when you are given the call to be vaccinated, please take the opportunity to have your appointment as well. There are other things that I just like to state in terms of, you know, I think that some of the messages that have come out to us have been too slow from the government in terms of acting on it, but that becomes a political discussion.
We like those. We like political discussions, but maybe we'll stick to the health part right now on this segment.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. But it's very important that we all take care of ourselves when we see that we are at risk and identify to be a group at risk. Then it's very, very important that we all do our bit, not just protect ourselves, but everybody else as well.
All right, thank you so much for that, Dr. Kume. We've got a couple of minutes left, but I want to go back to Lucy Haber, Director of Public Health for Luton Borough Council. So, Lucy, in terms of surge testing in Luton, we know it's happening next door, as we've heard from Dr. Kume in Bedford. Do you see that coming into Luton? And if it hasn't arrived yet, is there any reason why not?
We haven't got the case numbers that they've had in Bedford to justify surge testing. So as you've rightly said, Bedford, and I think exponential is a great word, it just went up and up and up and up really, really quickly in Bedford. And so they had to test a lot of people to find as many cases. As I said, we've since March, we've had maybe 16 cases in Luton. So we just don't have the numbers to warrant surge testing. But this week we have been doing some targeted testing. So where we've seen a cluster of cases, we have tested that local community and had really good participation from that. I think it's unlikely that we'll probably do much surge testing, because I think the Indian variant now is in such great proportions that we'll just assume that is now the main variant in the country. So we probably won't be doing much more surge testing nationally, but we cannot stop doing, and I just love the way that you phrase it, we've got to keep going with hands, face, space. and reminding people that even if they're vaccinated, they still have to wear a face covering because they can still pass the virus on. They might not get ill themselves, but they can still carry it in their nose and mouth. Wearing a face covering is still really essential. Washing your hands is really important, and keeping a distance. So by all means, hug your loved ones. By all means, see your loved ones. Try and meet them outside if you can. If you hug them, make it a quick hug and then step back again. Keeping that distance is still really important, even whilst we're meeting up with people that we love.
Fantastic advice. Well, ladies, I really appreciate your time on tonight's program, Friday Night Live, and thank you so much for joining us. Take care of yourselves.
Thank you.
Cheers. Bye-bye. Good night. All right, listeners, this is Friday Night Live. We're going to be taking a short break, but after the break, we're going to be talking about how COVID is affecting Luton businesses, okay? Lots of you owning shops and lots of you in different trade, I'm sure. This has affected a lot of people. We're going to be finding out how it's affected you and what you can do about it in a moment. So stay tuned. We'll be right back after these messages.
In Luton and its surrounding areas, it is now time for Salat al-Asr.
लुटन और इसके मज़ाफ़ात में नमाज़े असर का वक्त हुआ चाहता है.
This azan has been sponsored by Ideal Properties. Contact us on 01582 721110 or log on to www.idealpropertiesltd.co.uk.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. حي على الصلاة. حي على الصلاة. حي على الفلاح. حي على الفلاح. الله أكبر، الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله.
اللهم رب هذه الدعوة التامة والصلاة القائمة آت محمدا الوسيلة والفضيلة وابعثه مقاما محمودا الذي وعدته.
Would you like to sponsor the azan? If so, give us a call on 01582 481 810 or email us on info@inspirefm.org.
From the studios of Inspire FM, the time is now 6:30.
Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to part 2 of tonight's edition of Friday Night Live on Friday, the 21st of May 2021. I'm your host, Abdul Akbar, sitting in for Hafiz Shaban this evening. And joining me also is Zafar Iqbal. Zafar Saab, Assalamu alaikum. How are you? Zafar Saab?
Walaikum salam.
There he is. There he is. There he is. Nah, he was having his chapati and egg, and I don't know what else you people eat.
Not
I'm
quite,
joking.
not quite.
But Zafar, listen, we just talked about the Indian variant in Luton. Lucy Hubber, very nice of her to join us. What are you hearing on the ground in Luton? Are you hearing much of the Indian variant doing the rounds, or is it fairly quiet, as we heard from Lucy in Luton?
It's fairly quiet. There's a couple of cases in one of the local schools that were reported, not necessarily the Indian variant related. That wasn't confirmed, but a couple of cases. Luton hasn't been in the headlines at all, right? So, which is a good thing. Unlike our neighbouring town, Bedford, I think Bedford is top of the list at the moment. In terms of the Indian variant. But thankfully, we've been quite lucky.
You have been. That's fantastic news. I just want to say to all the listeners out there that in roughly half an hour's time, we're going to go on to our Palestine special. We'll be talking to Ismail Patel from Friends of Al-Aqsa. We'll also be talking to a British-born Palestinian, giving us his perspective, and also Dr. Melanie Garson, who's a lecturer in conflict resolution and international security. She's going to be giving us her take on the situation between Israel and Palestinians and what actually triggered that. And also we're joined by Hamza Ali Shah, who is a political researcher who focuses on global politics. He'll be sharing his perspectives on what's been happening with the Israel/Palestine situation. So if you're just tuning in right now, the latest news is that we have both Israel and the Palestinian group Hamas having claimed victory after the ceasefire took hold early on today. Now, the truth faced a very early test when fresh clashes actually broke out earlier on today at the Masjid al-Aqsa in East Jerusalem, which is actually occupied by the Israelis. And it's really important for people to understand that Masjid al-Aqsa is a very special place for many of our Abrahamic faiths, and it's a very special place for Muslims as well. And this is where Muslims go to pray. It's the place where the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam actually went to perform the night prayer, and it's a place where he led the other prophets upon all of whom be peace in prayer. It's a very important part of the Islamic religion, and it's also a very important part of the Jewish religion, which makes it so contentious, especially given the geopolitical situation. We're going to be talking about all of that in roughly half an hour's time, and you can call in and share your perspectives as well on 01582 481 822. We'll be talking about Palestine in roughly half an hour's time. Stay tuned for that. But I do want to go on to the extension of our COVID topic, because Zafar Saab, I know you know this because you are a Lutonian, for many years, decades. You know the Luton area much better than I do. I've only been in Luton for around 11 years. But what I will say is that the COVID situation has really impacted not just individuals, but also businesses which were forced to close or serve only takeaway meals, etc., etc. And one of those areas, one of those businesses was actually one that a lot of people in Luton will be familiar with, which is the Galaxy Centre, which is in town centre. And we're lucky to be joined by Bashir Delvisab, who's actually going to take us through the impact that's had on businesses in the Galaxy Centre. He's the general manager of the Galaxy Centre in Luton, and I'd like to welcome him to the programme this evening. Assalamu alaikum, Bashir Saab.
Wa alaikum assalam, Abdul. How are you?
Very well, thank you, and you're looking good too. Thanks for joining us on Friday Night Live. We're beaming out to the good people of Luton and also to the good people of Sheffield, Nottingham, Derby and Peterborough tonight. But you run, a very important, social area, really, a social contact point, a area where people go to eat and people go to have recreation and eat desserts. And it's a very important focal point, I would say, for Lutonians and for visitors in Luton. How has the pandemic affected business for the Galaxy Centre in Luton, Bashir sir?
Well, it's been a real struggle for all of the tenants at the Galaxy, to be honest. Now, apart from apart from say Nando's and Cookies and Cream and White House, they are able to serve takeaways, so they were okay. Nando's and Subway, so they opened during the pandemic. But all the other ones, like the cinema, struggled really badly. Now, the cinema had to furlough, and not only furlough, but most of their staff were on zero contract hours, so they lost 1 year of salary. So that impacted quite severely, not only on people enjoying themselves, but on their livelihoods. So it was a real struggle. And obviously they had support from the government, the local council, with the grants and the furlough scheme and the rates relief. That helped, because without that, I think there would have been a danger of some of the tenants within not only the Galaxy, but the retail as a whole would have stopped trading. So it was a very severe impact, really was.
Yeah, I can imagine. And, Bashir sir, you mentioned something really important. It's often the forgotten people who are on 0 hours contracts. And a lot of people are on 0 hour contracts and they're not actually eligible for furlough because they're not on full-time contracts. One of the benefits to employers of a 0 hour contract is that you can drop the person with immediate notice and they're pretty much dispensable. Part of the gig economy, which is really difficult, and it's a really interesting point. I hope those people are doing okay, and I'm sure that it's been a tough time for them. But Councillor Aslam Khan is on the line as well. Councillor Saab, Jazakallah for joining us. Assalamu alaikum and a belated Eid Mubarak to you as well, Councillor Saab. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you very much. Akbar Saab, it's a pleasure to be back again, and belated Eid Mubarak to you and all your listeners.
Thanks for joining us. And Councillor Saab, you just heard Bashir Delvi Saab, who is the centre manager for the Galaxy, such an important part of the Luton town centre area, talking about some of the challenges that a lot of the tenants have faced in the Galaxy Centre. What has the council been doing in order to ensure that businesses have been able to cope under the pandemic situation? And what can businesses do and what can they avail in order to ensure that they continue to thrive, given the new flexibilities that we've seen earlier on this week? Oh, Councillor Saab, we've lost your voice for some reason. I'm not sure why.
Can you hear
there
me?
you are.
Yeah.
Yeah, now we can.
You're on mute.
Oh, now you're going again. It keeps going. I can see your lips moving, but I can't see you. I can't hear your voice. Try again, Councillor. Oh, no, we can't hear you, Councillor Saab. For some reason, we've lost your voice. We'll try and get you back in a moment. Now, we still can't hear you, Councillor Saab. But let me go to... No, not yet. We're just trying to get Councillor Aslam Khan audio back on the line, and we'll get him reconnected. But let me go back to Bashir Delvi, who is the centre manager for the Galaxy Centre in Luton. So Bashir Saab, you mentioned Nando's is now open. Is it correct to say that restaurants like Nando's can actually serve indoors as well as outdoors? What restrictions are still in place for them, though?
One thing I'd mention is, I know Councillor Aslam Khan was mentioning, talking about the help that the local council have given the local retailers and the restaurateurs. What I'd say is I'm part of the Luton Bid, which is an organisation that looks after the Luton Town Centre, which is the retail, leisure, food and beverage and everything else. And that organisation has been helping a lot of the local retailers with regards grants, so they can apply for various grants throughout the whole year. So the council has been administering and managing that. They've also been able to provide them with COVID information, posters and information about what to do to open their premises. So they've been doing a lot of that as well. So that's been a great help for some of the tenants as well. Going back to your question, Nando's has opened as from Monday. And to be honest, it has been so busy because Lutonians, I've been in Luton all my life. For some reason, they love Nando's. I'm telling you.
They love their peri-peri chicken.
Peri-peri chicken, anywhere you go, Bury Park, wherever, peri-peri chicken, and it is what they love to eat. And
Yeah.
ever since Nando's opened on the Monday, it's been very, very busy. Now,
Yeah.
the issue with Nando's and with any restaurateurs is that, okay, they can open indoors, but the issue is the social distancing, right? They still have to keep 2 meters away or 1 meter away. Now, that doesn't only apply to the people sitting down and eating, but it's also applied to the people cooking the food. So what that means is, if you have lots of people in the restaurant, you don't have enough staff to cook the food to be able to provide the service that you want. So that is an issue. But having said that, I was there this week at work, and the Nando's has been very, very busy. Cookies and cream as well, which is upstairs. It's been very, very busy as well. So I think it was, people were looking forward to it, to be honest. They really were.
Well, Bashir Saab, you know what it means, right? I mean, if they're busy, that means they can pay the rent, and you can thrive as well, and and the full kind of circle goes round. So I'm guessing that's great news for you as well at the Galaxy Centre. But Councillor Aslam Khan is back. Hopefully, we can hear you, Councillor Saab. Over to you.
Yeah, sorry. Thank you very much. I don't know what happened there, but always internet issues. But thank you very much for explaining, Bashir, which we go back a long way. Like Bashir said, that we have done our level best to support all our businesses, working with business community, working with community safety team, and the entire council function has been working tirelessly to ensure that, first of all our residents are safe, and secondly, when the business were allowed to open, ensure that they got all the financial help that we could possibly give them. We have the administration role, of course, and ensuring that for those people who are rightfully qualified, get the vital support they need. The important thing to remember is we know that we all, people have been stuck indoors long enough, and they want to be out there, they want to be with their friends, and they want to wine and dine. But the risk is still there, the infections are still there, various different variants are coming from different parts of the world. So the basic message is making sure that we wear our masks, we wash our hands regularly, we keep that distance and that space, which has been communicated on a regular basis of that 2 meters. And like Bashir was saying, that quite often when you are preparing foods, the staff will also be complying with the same guidelines, and that will mean that there will be delays. So people need to be patient, and they need to make sure that they don't put themselves at risk and others for sake of quick service and congregating in groups. So we want everything to be open and to be normal again. However, we have to make sure you've seen people before you either are no longer with us, or were hospitalized, or still are suffering one way or the other. So it's a responsibility upon all of us to make sure that we comply with those guidelines. They're there for a reason. They're there for our safety and safety of public at large. And I would strongly urge people to comply with those guidelines.
Well, what about, Councillor Saab, what about folks who are furloughed and they're not getting the normal income stream, or maybe they're on 0-hour contracts and they don't have the income stream they had pre-COVID, and they can't afford to pay for things like their council tax, etc.? Is there anything the council is doing to help people out in those situations as well?
Well, I mean, we know that a lot of people have been affected, and if they did not get business grants, and then there's obviously universal credit and other benefits through which they will get that support. So people will get that support, but in different ways and means. So there is a criteria to follow. The money that we get is limited, and there's a strict criteria that we got to follow. But for those people who are followed, can sort of apply. We have various different ways, like hardship help and so forth. But each case is different. Like I said, a vast majority of the money that we received for those businesses, whether it's small, medium, or large, we have supported them, and we're one of those councils who've been very quick and efficient in getting the help out.
Yeah, I've heard really good feedback actually about Luton Borough Council's response to the COVID pandemic. So kudos to you and all the other councillors working on this for the community, Councillor Saab. And we go back to Bashir Saab for the Galaxy Centre. So Bashir Saab, in terms of your tenants, we mentioned a few in the conversation we had earlier. How do you actually make sure that they're following the COVID rules and making sure that they are keeping that space of 2 meters and ensuring that there isn't any enforcement against the Galaxy Centre, for example, for not adhering to those guidelines. Is there anything that you're doing to make sure that your tenants are set up for success here?
Yeah, I mean, what all the tenants have done, they've have had to do a COVID risk assessment before they open anyway. So that risk assessment could identify areas that they need to make sure that they are safe. So in any of the places that you go, whether it's Nando's, whether you go to the gym, or whether you go to the cinema, you'll have the sanitizers, you'll have members of staff directing you in the right direction and making sure that everybody keeps the social distance. So that is done by the people at the Galaxy, the tenants at the Galaxy. For example, in the gym, if you go in the gym, and that's been amazing as well, it's been very, very busy. They only have, I think, 50% of capacity now, because they can't have everybody who wants to use the gym go in there. And it's a question of one in, one out. There's a capacity, and once you reach the capacity, they won't let anybody in. And all the equipment is sanitized on a regular basis. Similarly, if you go to the Nando's, social distancing, there are screens in between all the tables. So the risk of infection is very, very low as well. And cinema as well. Once again, it's a cinema open on Wednesday, actually, which was yesterday. And which is great, because the cinema has been out of action for nearly, over a year. And that's been one of the biggest draws at the Galaxy, is the cinema, because people want to go out, enjoy, watch a movie. And this is the first time they've been able to do that. Not only that, but previously when they opened, there weren't any films been shown, because there was, the distributors were not distributing films to the cinema. But now we got Peter Rabbit, Tom and Jerry, the movie, Mortal Kombat, all the movies are out. But once again, in the cinema, you book online, you come to the cinema, one-way system, and the seats are allocated when you book online. So what that means is, if you want a family of 4 to book together, you can have the family of 4. But then there won't be anybody sitting behind you, in front of you, or next to you, because the next seats that will be allocated will be at a distance which is safe. So, and I have security people on site as well, who make sure that people who come into the Galaxy, we ask them to put the mask on.
That's great. And Bashir Saab, do you see a world where the government, maybe not the council, but the government will stipulate retailers actually having to ask people to prove that they've been vaccinated in order to benefit from the facilities like the ones that you're running? Do you see that coming into action in the near future? I mean, at the moment, people can just walk in. Nobody's asking them if they're vaccinated or not. Who cares at the moment? As long as you keep your hands, face and space guidelines. Do you see that changing in the future? And what would you, as somebody who runs a large center like the Galaxy Center, like to have? What would you prefer as a retailer of retailers?
It's a difficult question, because obviously you want people to get vaccinated, which is key. And I would encourage whoever hasn't had the vaccination to, if they have the chance, please do so. The difficulty with food and beverage is that enforcing or having somebody come into a shop or a restaurant and prove that it had the vaccination is going to be very, very difficult, because a lot of the youngsters will not get vaccinated for a long, long time. Right? It'd be about at least a couple of months or maybe longer. So we are excluding them from entering the leisure premises. So that's not fair in a way. But going further forward, I don't think that's something that the government will enforce, not in the food and beverage industry. Maybe going on holidays or whatever, yes, that might be one way of doing it. You also have the NHS app as well, which a lot of the restaurateurs and retailers are using, so that when you enter the restaurant or a cinema, you have to scan your NHS app, and that will identify straight away whether you've had the vaccination or whether or not there's anybody within the vicinity who's got COVID. So that's the one way that it might work with the NHS app.
Yeah, makes sense. Thank you for that. And Councillor Saab, do you see a world, have you had discussions in the inner chambers of Luton Borough Council about vaccine passports or evidence to show that you've been vaccinated in order to benefit from retail facilities, etc.? I mean, do you see a world where that could happen in Luton and beyond?
Well, we certainly haven't been part of any enforcement or ensuring that it's a must, it's a choice for people at the moment. If you look at all the risks and benefits, vaccination clearly offers that protection for people. I know of people who've been vaccinated and have got COVID again, but they recovered and they've come back, and clearly shows that vaccination is working. But it may be for the government really to look at putting a policy together, but it's not something that we have been involved or encouraging. But I can see what's going on in India and other parts of the world where the risk is far greater, and if people go there and contract and come back and pass on, again we are seeing that lives are being put at risk, and so I personally think it's very difficult to enforce, but it's like Bashir said that certainly there are places who are looking at apps and other means to see whether you've got the right level of protection, or you're wearing a mask and making sure you're keeping that distance. I mean, more importantly is that factor that we have to make sure we get right, is that hand, face, and space. The vaccination is optional, but I highly would recommend people to get vaccinated because it saves lives.
Absolutely, absolutely, well said. And finally, Bashir Saab, with you, are you finding that people coming to your premises at the Galaxy Centre, are they compliant? Are they following the rules? When you say, hey guys, keep 2 meters apart, and when your stewards actually advise people to keep 2 meters apart, are people complying? Do they get it, or are they non-compliant? What's been your experience so far this week?
It's been good, to be honest. They are adhering to it at most times. I wouldn't lie to you. There are occasions where when you have a group of people coming in and they're waiting in a queue, they somehow forget the fact that they are in a queue and they shouldn't be mixing with anybody else. So yes, I think sometimes it's a question of being in that situation where you think, oh, well, everything's fine and I'll be all right. But to be honest, it's been okay. And the difficulty with this is, like I'm sure Councillor Aslam Khan will back me up on this, there's no proper, you can't really enforce it. If somebody says, I'm not going to wear a mask, there's nothing to do about it, to be honest. We can't enforce it. So we try and encourage them to do so. And to be honest, it's not been a big issue at the Galaxy because when they come into the Galaxy, they're going to a particular place, unlike the mall where they can walk around and just hang around. Whereas at the Galaxy, either going to the gym or going to the cinema or whatever. So there is an opportunity for them to be wandering around without wearing a mask. So I'm lucky in that way. But to be honest, the people of Luton have been quite good. They've been adhering to it at the Galaxy.
Thanks for sharing that. Well, let me say this to our listeners this evening, or if you're listening back to the recording of this program, which is, brothers and sisters, go out and support our businesses in Luton, in Sheffield, in Nottingham, in Peterborough, in Derby, wherever you are. I think businesses have suffered. And we really need to go out in our numbers, making sure that we, follow the guidelines of hands, face, and space. But really, let's go out and spend some money in those businesses and help them prop up and really recover from the very challenging 12 plus months that we've had in the country and in those areas. And I know Berry Park is no exception. I know the Galaxy Centre, the mall, everyone has suffered. I'm just talking about Luton right now. We've even seen Debenhams close down and some really big institutions like Toys R Us, etc. close down. A lot of casualties in this war with COVID. And I'm really grateful for both of you gents for joining us tonight and sharing your perspectives. And I really hope things go back to normal as soon as we can. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Appreciate the time.
Just a last word.
Gigi.
This is a great opportunity for our Lutonians to make sure that pound is spent locally. I know that people would love to go out to London and elsewhere. It's your opportunity. We need your support to support the local businesses. There are a lot of lovely restaurants here, a lot of good food.
Cool.
We want you to come out, but now we want you to start supporting our businesses in Luton. But main thing is do it in a safe manner, do it in a safe way. You have been fantastic. You have pulled together. Luton has proved that it's got a very strong community. We've been amazed with all the volunteers and all the support we got from them. We want that to continue, and please take that personal responsibility to keep yourself and others safe. The hand, face, space is fundamental.
I couldn't have said it better myself. Gigi, Bashir, so really quickly.
Yeah, quickly. I just want to say is just to make sure that we do not want to go to another lockdown, right? That's the last thing anybody wants. So like Aslam Khan Musab saying, please, come out, enjoy yourself. Everything's there for you, but please be safe.
Gents, thank you so much for that. I couldn't agree more. Thank you very much for joining us on Friday Night Live. Good evening. Take care. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you.
All right, listeners. Jazakallah. Listeners, this was Friday Night Live. We're going to be back for part 3 actually for tonight, where we're talking about the Palestine situation. So stay tuned for that. Lots more coming up on that topic. Of course, it's affected many of us as we've been circling our social media circles and having a look at some of the videos I'm sure you've been sent in your WhatsApp and social media. It's been quite heart-wrenching. More on this topic and trying to understand it in a moment. Stay tuned. We'll be right back after these messages.
This program will continue after the break. Continue listening to Inspire FM. Inspire FM.
Inspire 105.1 FM.
आजकल लोग सड़कों पर चलते फिरते चोरी के मोबाइल फोन, लैपटॉप, कैमरा और इस तरह की मुख्तलिफ चीजें फरोख्त करते हैं। चोरी की चीजें खरीदने का मतलब आप इस चोरी में शामिल हैं। इसलिए चलते फिरते लोगों से चीजें हरगिज ना खरीदें, बल्कि ऐसे अफराद के बारे में पुलिस को आगाह करें। इंस्पायर एफएम कम्युनिटी अवेयरनेस मैसेज।
Landlords, let us take away the hassle of letting your property. Our comprehensive services include tenant vetting, rent collection and service charges, maintenance and repairs. Ideal Properties has 2 branches and have been established over 20 years and have gained a wealth of knowledge and experience.
If you are thinking of selling or letting your property, then speak to a member of our knowledgeable team about a free, no-obligation market appraisal.
We can also offer guaranteed rental income.
Contact us on either Luton 721110 or 696050. Ideal Properties. Service with a smile, whatever your needs.
Do you want an Islamic education alongside national curriculum for your child? Al Hikmah School for Boys and Girls are your #1 choice. Last year, we had the highest attainment 8 score in Luton, and the GCSE pass rate in Maths and English was 94%. We teach a full range of subjects where you can gain up to 10 GCSEs. The school is now registered with the prestigious private school body ISA and uses state-of-the-art facilities, including indoor playing area, playing field, brand new science lab, and IT facilities. Call now to apply for your child on 01582 728 196.
Did you know that Zaid radiallahu anhu is the only Sahabi whose name is mentioned in the Quran in Surah Ahzab?
Whether you're looking to refresh your current bathroom or enjoy an exciting complete new design, you'll find everything you need at trade prices at Bath & Tile Superstore in Luton, with service with a smile from our super friendly staff. Why not take advantage of our 3D design service? Big names, designer brands at low prices. Bathrooms, tiles, radiators, adhesive, grouting and accessories. Visit the showroom where there's extensive stock to take away or arrange for delivery. That's Bath & Tile Superstore, Cosgrove Way, LU1 1XL. Don't forget to check us out on Facebook and Instagram for inspiration and updates.
अब हर कोई हफ्ते में 2 बार मुफ्त कोविड-19 टेस्ट कर सकता है। आधे घंटे के अंदर नताइज आपके सामने। इससे ये पता चलता है कि आप अपने प्यारों की हिफाजत के लिए जो कर सकते हैं वो कर रहे हैं। आपके दोस्त, आपके साथ काम करने वाले साथी और आपकी जिंदगी में फिर से आगे बढ़ने की ख्वाहिश। अंदाजन 3 में से 1 शख्स ऐसा है जिसमें बज़ाहिर कोविड-19 की कोई अलामत दिखाई नहीं देती, मगर अनजाने में वो उसे फैला रहा है। वो आपका कोई दोस्त, रिश्तेदार, काम का साथी या आप खुद भी हो सकते हैं। रैपिड टेस्ट बहुत आसानी से nhs.uk/get-tested से मिल सकते हैं। आइए ये अगला कदम बहुत मोहतात होकर उठाएं।
इत्दाल, हुर्रियत और हक की आवाज़ हमेशा गालिब रही है और यही आवाज़ हमेशा गालिब रहेगी। आइए और सुनिए हक की आवाज़। मैं हूँ इमाम हाफिज इजाज़मन, सुनाऊंगा आपको प्रोग्राम आवाज़ाए हक में हक की आवाज़, हर सोमवार 11 बजे से 12 बजे तक, only on Inspire FM 105.1.
From the studios of Inspire FM, the time is now 7 o'clock.
Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to part 3 of tonight's edition of Friday Night Live with me, Abdul Akbar, and Zafar Iqbal Sab. Alhamdulillah, we've had a great program so far where we've been talking about COVID in the local areas across the UK, especially Sheffield, Nottingham, Derby, Peterborough, and Luton and surrounding areas, which is where we're beaming out from tonight. So Zafar Sab, are you there with me? Zafar Sab? Zafar Sab? All right, I don't have Zafar Sab right now, so hopefully he's going to be back with me in a moment. But, ladies and gents, I do want to let you know that it's a very, very tense situation in Israel right now and on the Gaza Strip, because as you all know, over the last 7+ days, that's right, 7+ days, there have been missiles, rockets fired in both directions. Some much more disproportionately than others, and depending on which side you're on, you're going to have a very different take on things. Now, I've got to say to you, I have been deeply affected by what's been going on since Eid, frankly speaking. On the last few nights of Ramadan, going into the days of Eid, imagine if you were one of those Palestinians, you know, going to Masjid al-Aqsa to pray your Taraweeh prayers, and suddenly this type of situation starts to unfold in one of the holiest sites for your religion. That's a very challenging situation to be in, and I'm sure it shocked the very nerves of the Muslim world. I know it shocked me as somebody who has Christian friends, I have Jewish friends, of course I have Muslim friends, I have Christian colleagues, I have Jewish colleagues, I have Israeli colleagues. I personally, alhamdulillah, have been to Masjid al-Aqsa, that area you've been seeing on the news many times. I'm very lucky where I've been to Masjid al-Aqsa, or Bayt al-Muqaddis, as it's known as the noble sanctuary. I've actually been there myself 4 times, and I can show you pictures of that place. I'm telling you right now, when you go there, brothers and sisters, when you go to Bayt al-Muqaddis, okay, which is the noble sanctuary as we call it in Islam, our Jewish neighbors call it the Temple Mount, but when you go there, you actually feel as though you are in Mecca or Medina. That peace that you get in Medina, that's the peace I felt when I went to East Jerusalem and worshipped at the mosque where the Prophet ﷺ led the other prophets in the night journey, which we all know about and which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in the Quran. But right now, ladies and gents, I just want to make sense of the current situation. What is going on? What the heck happened over the last week? What's happening still, even today, if you turned on the news, whether it's BBC or Sky News or your favorite news broadcaster, you would have seen clashes taking place today at Masjid al-Aqsa, right? And the compound around the Dome of the Rock. And it's deeply disturbing to see, deeply shocking to see for me as a Muslim. And I have Israeli, I have Jewish friends who have also been shocked at the reaction from the Israeli Defense Forces and the hostilities that have been shown from them towards Palestinian protesters. I've been shocked to see the kind of reaction from just normal news reporters. If you watch CNN, or you watch Sky News, or you watch the BBC, you can see those journalists quite visibly shocked on the way folks in Sheikh Jarrah, I mean, we're talking about the township that is under dispute right now, that had a particular judgment that was due last week, which was deferred because of the current tensions. We're talking about them spraying what's known as sewage water onto Palestinians, onto children that are simply protesting. I don't know. I can't make sense of that. Can you? 01582 481822. I'm happy to take calls on your reactions to the situation. But then there's the other side before I go to my guests. The other side is that Hamas, who arguably don't represent the majority of Palestinians, are firing thousands of rockets from the Gaza Strip into mainland Israel. So the Israelis are doing what any sovereign country would do, which is defend itself. And they've certainly been doing that. Now, I personally believe that the defense that Israel has mounted has been completely disproportionate. Oh my God. How can you knock an entire building down if there is one or two suspects that happen to live in that building? That, to me, brothers and sisters, just did not compute. And it wasn't just one building. Oh my God. They knocked down 5-10 buildings. 5-10 buildings. One which was housing proper international news organizations. I've been shocked in disbelief. We all know that the Israelis have weapons that are more powerful than most countries' weapons, frankly speaking. But I've been shocked, and I'm just scratching my head thinking, you know what? If Hamas is sending thousands of rockets across, then is it a reaction? And if Israel is bombing all these buildings, is that an overreaction? Yes, they're reacting to those thousands of rockets that happen to hit Tel Aviv and townships outside Tel Aviv. And then you've got so-called neutral partners like America, who are clearly, in my opinion, siding with the Israelis on this one, saying Israel has the right to defend itself. But then I'm scratching my head thinking, well, what about the Palestinians? Don't they have a right to defend themselves? But also I'm scratching my head thinking, well, who speaks for the Palestinians? Is it Hamas? Is it the PLO? Is it Mahmoud Abbas? Like, don't they have to get their ship in order as well so that they can speak with one unified voice? Well, brothers and sisters, tonight we're going to spend the next hour on this topic, and I'm delighted to be joined by Ismail Patel from Friends of Al-Aqsa. We're also going to be joined by Hamza Ali Shah, who is a political researcher and writer based in London, who focuses on global politics. We're also joined by Shokri, who is a British citizen of Palestinian origin. He's going to be sharing his perspectives. He's actually worked for 2 years setting up the first cardiac center in the Palestinian city of Bethlehem. We'll be talking to him. And we're also going to be speaking to Ahmed live from Gaza. Alhamdulillah, we've got somebody live in Gaza who will be giving us the situation on the ground. I'm also really delighted to be welcoming Dr. Melanie Garson, who is a lecturer in conflict resolution and international security from UCL, University College London, and delighted to welcome her on the program tonight. Good evening, everybody. Assalamu alaikum.
Good evening.
Welcome to all of you. So let me start. Thank you so much, everyone. Great to see you all, and also great to have Dr. Melanie on the line. Let me start with you, Dr. Melanie, because you're somebody who really specializes in conflict resolution. And I'm sure you probably have some answers to this situation than I do. I have a lot of questions, but I don't necessarily have the answers. What say you as to what triggered the current situation, the current problems that we're seeing in the Israeli-Palestine conflict? What started it? Because I heard that what really triggered this wasn't just Sheikh Jarrah, but actually it was the Israeli Defense Force going into the Al-Aqsa compound on one of the holiest nights for Muslims. I mean, what's your independent analysis here?
Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me, and good evening.
Good evening.
Think there is, like, the history of the conflict itself, there's never one factor that you can pinpoint, and it's a confluence of factors that, and to some extent, it's, you had the ruling on Sheikh Jarrah, which for some people don't know was a land property dispute between returning ownership or dispute, a question of ownership of property in East Jerusalem, had a ruling on that coincided with the end of Ramadan, and the dispute on that had led to a certain amount of anger that led to reactions within the Al-Aqsa area on the Haram al-Sharif, where people expressed their discontent, and there was if you want, a reaction from the Israeli security forces to secure the area at the same time. Now, that was undoubtedly, and the Israelis have expressed regret at a certain level of heavy-handedness that took place on that day. I think the confluence, so you have to look, if we look at external factors, there's always external factors and internal factors. We have the end of Ramadan, we have heat, we have hunger, we have internal religious, spiritual sense of seeking. People have gone there with a peaceful purpose, but upset was easily triggered at that point. I think also we have to look externally at the COVID situation. This was one of the first times that really people are able to congregate en masse after months and months and months of not having self-expression. So that was sort of the immediate trigger. In response, Hamas, who, as you've rightly said, is not necessarily the voice of the majority of Palestinian people. They are a designated terrorist organization for a number of countries, decided to react with significant firepower and significant, which forced a situation that there is no sovereign nation on earth that can tolerate that amount of rockets coming into their territory and not have to defend forward. And on the sidelines, and something that people don't necessarily look at, is we have the role of Iran. And that's sort of an outside player that sometimes gets forgotten, which has been objecting to peace and reconciliation between the Israelis and the Palestinian as a whole, and have been a fundamental player in providing the rocket power that Hamas was able to utilize at that point. So there's multifactorial elements that play into it.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Dr. Garson. And if anyone's just tuning in right now, we're talking about the Palestinian situation and the Israeli situation that's unfolded over the last week. That's really killed a lot of people, frankly speaking, on both sides, but certainly more so on the Palestinian side, it has to be said. Dr. Garson, will come back to you in a moment from University College London. Let me go straight to Ismail Patel, Friends of Al-Aqsa. Great to have you on the program tonight, Ismail Saab, and nice to have you share your perspectives with us in a moment. But Ismail, you just heard Dr. Melanie Garson giving her take on what's happened and the confluence of all those different factors she so elegantly put. What's your interpretation of how this all kicked off? Is this just a symptomatic of what happened recently, or is this something that's been brewing for years and if not decades? But over to you.
Well, I think what we have to understand that Israel occupies Palestinian territory. It's an illegal occupying force according to all instruments of international organizations, including Geneva Convention, UN resolution, international law, including the British government. The British government does not recognize Israel's occupation of the West Bank, East Jerusalem, and Gaza. It considers it as illegal. And therefore, I think the occupation itself is the problem. And the occupation, if you like, at least started in 1967, but I would like to push it to almost 1947-48, for 73 years. So here we have a people who have been occupied by a colonialist force, the Israelis. They have tried to bring in apartheid policies against and upon the upon the Palestinians, who have suffered the right of movement, the right to pray, the right to have their own houses, the right to judiciary, their own internal judiciary system, and the right to freedom and self-aspiration. And this has been going on for far too long. And of course, you will have then people wanting their freedom and therefore to act for that. As for the immediate action, I think, it is almost sad that somebody who goes to a university, forget an academic researcher, to talk about dispute ownership of Sheikh Jarrah. There's no dispute about Sheikh Jarrah. Sheikh Jarrah is in East Jerusalem. It is an occupied territory. Israel is an illegal occupant of that territory. It has no jurisdiction, either militarily or through legal system, to decide who those properties belong to. There is no dispute. The only dispute is from a colonialist perspective, that those who want to steal that property, who have big guns, can then point it to the Palestinians and say, well, this is ours. You get out of here, and we are creating a dispute. There is no dispute. In fact, Sheikh Jarrah is something, it has a long history. The name Sheikh Jarrah comes from the 12th century. When? 12th century. Sheikh Jarrah was the physician, the doctor of Salahuddin Ayyubi. He resided in that area, and that area is named after him. So this is a area that was named 12th century ago, before Zionism was ever thought of, born about, or even Israel have existed. And how all of a sudden we're talking about a disputed area. I mean, let's be serious here. There is no dispute here. These people can trace their heritage at least to 12th century. Some of the people who are resident in those homes were made refugees in 1947-48 when they were expelled and ethnically cleansed by Israel for the establishment of State of Israel. And those people are of the rightful heir and owners of those properties. Israel colonized this area in 1967, and now all of a sudden it wants to ethnically cleanse the Palestinians out of Jerusalem and create a demographic difference so that Israeli Jews and settlers can occupy and therefore consolidate its position on Jerusalem.
Okay.
And I also find it almost laughable. I just put one more point. To consider an external factor of fasting and heat that excited the Palestinians to react. I mean, I think that's an insult. That's an absolute insult to human beings. Fasting and heat does not create excitement to react. These people were peaceful worshippers in one of the holiest site in Islam in Jerusalem. They were attacked unprovoked with stun grenades, smoke bombs, and rubber bullets. And there is no anybody in their right mind could consider that as being excited because they were fasting.
Dr. Garson, I'll let you react to that.
Well, the narratives that have been presented with respect are narratives of difference. And I mean, one of the books that I would recommend anybody who's interested in this conflict read is a book called Arabs and Israelis. And it's a trilateral narrative by Abdul Monem Said Ali, Shai Feldman, and Khalid Shikaki. And they take every aspect of this conflict from the dates that, with respect, that you prefer, and even from before, and present the three-point view on every single stage of this conflict. And it is without, there will be always a he said, she said, or he said on the different perspectives. And we can sit and argue the historics of it until time immemorial. From my perspective as a conflict resolver, I don't believe that moves anything forward. I don't believe it's, you can look at it, you can shout the insult, you can deny the right of that Jewish people have had a history in that area of the world for over 4,000 years, long before the advent of Islam. And that's indisputable, that's objective historical fact. Denying both sides doesn't move anything forward. What moves life forward, and with one of the, having spent significant time working with Israelis and Palestinians in reconciliation and coexistence activities, is the perspective of one needs two wings to fly. One needs a situation where both acknowledge the right of self-determination of the other with respect and with dignity, and is genuinely engaged in moving a process forward so that everybody can move forward with their lives economically, socially, have human security, and be able to bring this bloody conflict, and in that sense, to an end once and for all.
Yeah, Dr. Garson, I think I totally hear what you're saying, and I'm sure we can agree to disagree on some of those things, but I know what you mean about conflict, and I definitely resonate with what you're saying when it comes to needing two wings to fly. And me being a pilot myself would certainly appreciate what you're saying there. You definitely need two to tango, two wings to fly. Insert analogy here in terms of cooperation. But my question to you is, how does this resolve itself? And you being somebody as an expert on conflict resolution, and I'm really grateful to have you on the program, somebody who's been looking at this conflict, somebody who's been working with both sides, how does one resolve a situation when the acts on one side, especially from a Palestinian perspective, they are the occupied, they are not the occupiers, they are the occupied. They've had their rights violated for decades. They get controlled in terms of what comes into Gaza City, what doesn't go in. The Israelis literally have them under lockdown. We've seen how lockdown affects our lives with the coronavirus pandemic and how much we struggled with lockdown in the UK and around the world. Imagine that 365 days a year, all year, for the last, 30, 40 years. And then one starts to just get an atom's weight of feeling as to what the Palestinians are going through. So from your perspective, how does one reconcile and compromise and move forward? Because I think it's easy to say we want peace. I think both sides will say they want peace. But then when you see, and this is me coming in from a very neutral perspective, yes, there is a sympathy for me on both sides, because I know people on both sides. I know Israelis and I know Palestinians, and I've been in contact with both sides as well. And I really feel for both sides. But then when you see Israel really bombarding buildings, literally taking the houses away from innocent Palestinians here that have got nothing to do with Hamas, I start to scratch my head and wonder, is this really something? Is this an act of reconciliation from Israel? That's what I'm trying to understand.
And first of all, you're right that it is the people that are suffering at the hands of leadership. That is without a doubt. And just symptomatic of that is Ismail Haniyeh said today, we have destroyed the project of coexistence. Now, that is in those words of normalization and in the very aim is to destroy the structures of coexistence. And it's not in response. We're talking 4,300 rockets. 4,300 rockets were shot over from the Gaza border. Not one or two, not 100, 4,000 into central Israel and rockets don't have a name on them. They're not aimed at that equally at Jews, at Palestinians, at Muslims living within Arab Israelis or Palestinian Israelis. They are indiscriminate into civilian areas with a deliberate intention to kill. So
but what about the buildings, though? But Dr. Ghassan, I want to challenge you there, though, because you mentioned that point, and I can see where you're coming from. But can you see where the other side is coming from, which is when those buildings were knocked down, including buildings which contained legitimate organizations like the Associated Press, like Al Jazeera, who were quite frankly shocked that the entire building that housed their equipment and their offices were destroyed because Hamas allegedly had a setup in there somewhere as well. But we've seen people who have been in those buildings saying, we've been in those buildings for 20 years. I've never seen any Hamas militants walking in and out. We know everyone in those buildings. What's going on there? So what about those Palestinians whose houses, because that building was actually not just a commercial building, it was an apartment building, an apartment complex. What about the innocent Palestinians that didn't have their names on the Israeli rocket that came and destroyed that building, right? What about them that had their houses suddenly just removed because of one or two Hamas militants that happened to reside in that building? That surely is not proportionate. And Israel, being the richer, being the more technologically sophisticated, doesn't it have more of a responsibility to show more responsibility?
Well, actually, and this has been objectively verified by actually British military. And you can go and look at Colonel Richard Kemp, who himself is a decorated military officer, had said this, that Israel, actually, they don't just bomb indiscriminately, they warn, they send text messages, they send flyers, they telephone the people, they actually warn people. In fact, they act against themselves in some respect from a strategic point of view, because they're actually warning people where they're going to bomb and making it very clear that the purpose and why they're going to do it.
I don't know, Dr. Garson, what I'm struggling to fathom here, and I hear where you're coming from, but again, if my house is destroyed, my house is destroyed. Warning or not, my house is destroyed. I didn't do anything. I'm innocent. Just because some guy in the flat next door, maybe he may have militant associations. Why are you destroying my apartment that I worked so hard to build? I mean, that's the kind of narrative that's coming out. Anyway, we're running out of time for this part of the segment. And Dr. Garson, I know you're only here for this part of the segments. That's why I wanted to make sure we got your perspective. And I really appreciate your time, Dr. Garson, and sharing your perspectives as well. Thanks for joining us.
And
take care. Thank you so much. Listeners, this is Friday Night Live. We're going to continue this conversation with the rest of our guests, with Hamza Ali Shah, with Shokri Othman, and Ismail Patel. We've also got Ahmed live from Gaza, who's going to give us the situation on the ground. My guests, stay with me. We're going to continue this conversation and your reactions straight after these messages. Don't go away. Stay tuned.
This program will continue after the break. Continue listening to Inspire FM. Inspire FM.
Inspire 105.1
Assalamu alaikum. This is Hamza Fletcher from Birmingham.
My name is James from Chicago.
My name is Shazia Salim from I Eat Food.
My name is Parveen Ahmed and I'm the curry queen of Hale.
My name is Mohammed Usman. I'm a local scout leader. My name is Mamnoon. I'm a local resident of Luton.
My name is Dawood Masood and I'm the winner of Young Person of the Year award.
My name is Riyad from the Luton Council of Faith.
My name is Ali Imdad. I'm from the Great British Bake Off. Keep listening to Inspire on 105.1 FM.
Assalamu alaikum. Abu Ayyub, may Allah be pleased with him, reported that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, whoever fasts Ramadan and follows it with 6 days of Shawwal, it will be as if he has fasted for a lifetime. This is narrated in Muslim, Abu Dawood, At-Tirmidhi, An-Nisai and Ibn Majah. Please join Inspire FM from Monday 17th to Saturday 22nd of May for 6 days of Shawwal fasting. Please join Brother Tariq for the Seri show every morning at 3 a.m. and our dear Brother Rashid 8:30 p.m. every evening for the live Iftari show. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept our good deeds, forgive our sins and make us people of Jannah. Please remember the oppressed in your du'as. Ameen.
How many times have you needed urgent medical supplies but don't know where to go? At Harris Pharmacy, we take pride in delivering a high-level healthcare to our community. This is why we have services such as private one-to-one consultation, free prescription ordering from GP and delivery to your home, mobility aids such as providing wheelchairs and many other items for everyday use. Call us today on free phone 0800 458 2850 to discuss your medical needs. We are open from 9 a.m. till 7 p.m. Monday to Friday and 9 a.m. till 4 p.m. on Saturdays. Harris Pharmacy, 165 A/B, Dunstable Road, Luton.
On the authority of Abu Hurairah, may Allah be pleased with him, who said, the Messenger of Allah, may the peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, said, this world is a prison for the believers and a paradise for the disbelievers.
Hazrat Abu Hurairah रज़ियल्लाहु ताला अन्हु से रवायत है कि नबी अकरम सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम ने फरमाया, ये दुनिया मोमन के लिए कैद खाना है और काफिर के लिए जन्नत.
MK Tiles and Bathroom. We're the specialists for porcelain and ceramic tiles. Visit our new showroom today with all the latest tiles on display. We have a huge range of wall and floor tiles and we guarantee to beat any genuine quotes. Plus, for a limited time only, you can save up to 25% off selected items. So visit the new MK Tiles and Bathroom showroom, now at 5A Riddy Lane, Luton, LU3 2AD, or call 01582 50 30 30.
Bombs are falling, men, women and children are being injured, whilst we witness many lives being lost in Palestine. Don't feel helpless. Here's your opportunity to be the help that they need to get them through this terrifying time. Provide them with life-saving medicine from £60, a mattress and blanket for £30 and essential food packs from £60. Call now on 0114 365 4454 or visit familiesrelief.org.uk and don't forget the suffering of the Ummah.
Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Inspire FM.
Join us on our show, Community Connect. With us,
Hashim,
Ibrahim,
Mohammed
Hussein,
Abdul Baki,
Aki Mahmood,
Saeed Junaid,
and Abdul Subhan.
Here we talk about topics that concern the community. So why not get involved every Wednesday from 6 to 7 p.m. and join us on our gripping conversations.
See you there. Community Connect, connecting the community.
From the studios of Inspire FM, the time is now 7:30.
Assalamu alaikum, welcome back. Assalamu alaikum, welcome back to the fourth and final part of tonight's edition of Friday Night Live with me, Abdul Akbar, and Zafar Iqbal Saab. Wow, we've been having an interesting conversation about the Palestine situation right now, the Palestine and Israeli situation that's been ongoing for the last few decades, but really has found an increase in hostilities on both sides as of the last 10 days or so. And I don't know about you, but I've really been struggling to sleep. I've really been struggling to not think about this situation, because as the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said, he said that the Muslim Ummah is like one body. And if one part of that body is feeling pain, then the whole body feels the pain. And I really hope that the pain hasn't been too much for all of you, but it's been a lot for me, and I know it's been a lot for my family. And having been to that holy place and to that special place in East Jerusalem, to Masjid al-Aqsa, I felt it a lot, and I really hope that the situation gets better soon and as soon as possible. But we've just had a number of guests on the line, and I want to go straight back to them, because on the line right now, I've got Ismail Patel from Friends of Al-Aqsa. I've got Brother Shokri, who is a British citizen of Palestinian origin. We're also joined by Hamza Ali Shah, who's a political researcher and writer based in London with a focus on global politics. And right now, we're also very lucky to be joined by another good friend of ours, who is Brother Ahmed in Gaza right now. So, Brother Ahmed, are you there?
Yes, assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So, Ahmed, you're live from Gaza right now, and we're very lucky to be joined by you. Just tell us, Brother Ahmed, how are you right now, and how is the situation in Gaza tonight?
Yes, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah, after 11 very hard nights, this night everything stopped from the bombing. 75,000 persons leave the schools in the UNRWA and went to their home and to check their home. And today we get the picture and the movies about. You will shock, because 70% of Gaza was destroyed. 75 the home were destroyed. The UNRWA asked the families leave the school. There is thousands families have no shelters at this time, because their home were destroyed. And when you see the movies, you will not believe, because the real story is more hard to believe.
Brother Ahmed, tell me, where are you right now? Are you in your home? Are you in an apartment? How are you? How is your situation right now in Gaza?
Now is calm. Just check everything. 11 days were very hard, but today just try to solve the electricity. Try to check everything. But the situation is still very hard, especially in the hospital, because there is more 2,000 injured in the hospital, need operations, need medical supplies, need many things.
Subhanallah. And of course, Brother Ahmed, right now you're in Gaza and there's COVID as well. How bad is the coronavirus situation in Gaza? How many people are struggling with that?
Before the war, every day, 2,000 person every day. After when the war began, because nobody can move to make the test, the situation is very, very, very hard now because all the families stay together in the schools. Nobody care about the corona, about the mask, because no mask, no any hygiene bag in the war days. From tomorrow, the hospital try to more check about how much the coronavirus injures, but the hospital talk about more 10,000 person have corona at these days.
My God, too much, too many, subhanallah, too many.
Yes,
It's it's very, 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 very difficult. Last question, Brother Ahmed, when you speak to the other Palestinian brothers and sisters, and you speak to them, of course, we went through Ramadan, and now we have gone through Eid, and now, subhanallah, we have this war, which just ended earlier this morning. Do you think this is enough? Do you think there will still be more fighting after this? Or do you think there is no more fighting from Hamas, there's no more rockets going to Israel, and there's no more rockets coming from Israel? Do you think it's ending now? Do the people think it's over?
No. The families still scared because nobody know what happened this night or tomorrow or next week. Because now, 15 years, Gaza people live under the siege. But now, it's not about food, about the water. It's about the life. Now, 2 million person want the safe, want to life. Now our problem, the Gaza people problem, it's not the food, it's not the water, it's just want to stay without a problem, without damage, stay safe, and for not for the families, for the children, before anything.
Absolutely. Subhanallah. Well, Brother Ahmed, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless all of you with peace. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you all with safety. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make the suffering easy for you and the rest of our Palestinian brothers and sisters. I know our thoughts and prayers are with you, and we will remember you in our du'as. And of course, we are remembering you always. Just know that we are thinking of you, we are remembering you around the world, Muslims and non-Muslims. We can see the situation, and everyone who is honest and just can see the situation for you and the prison that you are in. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy for you and quickly. Ameen, ameen, ameen. Jazakallah khair. Speak to you soon. Jazakallah khair. Okay, listeners, that was Brother Ahmed speaking to us live from Gaza. And subhanallah, let me go straight to Brother Shukri Othman, who's been on the line with us for the last half an hour or so. Brother Shukri, you're a British citizen of Palestinian origin, and of course you've actually worked in Palestine, setting up the first cardiac center there in the city in Bethlehem, not in Gaza, but in Bethlehem. Tell us, after hearing our own Brother Ahmed's voice there, what's going through your mind, and what are your reactions to what you've heard tonight?
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum, Brother Akbar, and your other guests and your listeners. Thank you for having me and for talking about Palestine. I think now that the guns are slightly down, we start to recognize why this the case of Palestine and the Israeli occupation and apartheid policies, why are they spiking the news between now and then? It's simply because, and all media outlets fall into this regularly. It's simply because we only get engaged everyone only gets engaged and involved in this conflict whenever there is a threat to Israel or its citizens. Nobody will go back to Brother Ahmed, who's just spoke to you from Gaza. Nobody will go to them a week from now or a month from now and ask them, how are you doing? What's been happening? The Israeli Prime Minister around 3-4 months ago tweeted to say that Israel can celebrate for the first time that there has been a year with no Israeli casualties. Israel has just managed to normalize its relationship with 5 Arab countries at the cost of nothing in return. Israel has just gone away from the coronavirus to be the first country globally to complete the immunization service for its citizen ahead of any other country. And yet they can't get away with all this and not be a bit more civilized when it comes to respecting other human beings. The reason this conflict came up is not because Sheikh Jarrah. I would agree with that. It's not about just Sheikh Jarrah or entering the Al-Aqsa compound or intimidating Palestinians. It's what happens every single day, not in hotspots, but everywhere in Palestine. I worked in a hospital in Bethlehem for 2 years, and because it's just surprising that when I say I opened the first cardiac center, or we opened the first cardiac center in Bethlehem, this city is 2,000 years old, Bethlehem, and it's the center point for Christianity all over the world, and it's the first cardiac center being opened in 2018. In 2018, if you had a heart attack in Bethlehem and you're a Palestinian, you have to go to Hebron. Now, on the road to Hebron, it takes 45 minutes and you have to wait for the ambulance to get to you. And there are many settlements on the road and many checkpoints on the road, and you're most likely to die because of this. Just because you happen to be a Palestinian living in Bethlehem. This is apartheid policies that affect every single person living in Palestine or outside Palestine. It's not just, it's about my father who lost his father in Tulkarem in the north of my father is 75. He lost his father who was 95 5 years ago, and he couldn't visit him. My father was born in Palestine, and he couldn't visit his father to say goodbye to him. Now, accumulation of all this is terrible. You have to get out of this. And Palestinians tried everything they could do. They went for peace process. They went to the international court, to international community. They already have the UN decisions on their side to get them freedom and respect and independent state. They have everything. They ticked all the boxes to treat the conflict in a civilized way. And yet, whenever anything happens, they are the ones to blame. They are the ones who have to clear themselves whenever it comes to this. I mean, your guest, Dr. Ghassan from University College London, she said she talked about the conflict from a conflict resolution perspective. And, I debated the conflict with many people from, I worked in Hampstead. I had many Jewish friends. We always talked about it. I worked, I worked in university, and we often debate from religious point of view, from political point of view, from history point of view. We always talk about this. Your guest then spoke about conflict resolution. The fundamental rule in conflict resolution is that you have to have a backbone rule that will apply to all members of the conflict in the same way, because then you have to have that foundation. So we need to agree that foundation and then see what is it that gives Israel the right to bomb Gaza and kill that many civilians. And by the way, it's not just Gaza, it's also the West Bank. Okay, Gaza is launching rockets. What about people in the West Bank? The images you saw in the news, the very famous images during this conflict, most recent one, was from Bethlehem on the news. That's when the Israeli jeeps were going to launch the tear gas on protesters. That's in Bethlehem. Now, Bethlehem is a Palestinian city. Why would these jeeps even be there? You know, they shouldn't even be there. And you know, it's just, there is nothing that Palestinians couldn't do. They tried to go for peace. The peace was determined on the 1967 borders. That's it. All the parties agreed on that, and we see what happens to this. If you go, visited this, but if you go through the West Bank, throughout the West Bank, and I'm from the north, and I worked in Bethlehem, so I was going all the way. There are so many settlement spots. Some of these settlements, one of these settlements has an area that is larger than Tel Aviv itself. I mean, how can you build a settlement bigger than your capital? It's just because that land has nobody to ask for it. So
understood.
It's really, and I really call upon everyone to please learn about the conflict. One of the reasons why this conflict is taking so long to resolve is because we don't learn about it. We got emotionally charged when there's a real spiral of event, but then we lose focus. It's a very key conflict.
Agreed.
It's not.
Agreed.
So.
Shokri, I can feel the passion, and I can feel the passion and all the hard work that you've done, and may Allah bless you for everything you've done so far and that you continue to do as well. But let me go to Hamza Ali Shah, and also I want to go to Dara Khamis and come back to Ismail Patel as well before we close in around 11 minutes time. But Hamza, from your perspective, somebody who's actually studied the politics of the whole situation, I would love to know what your take is on the Hamas situation. So every time you speak to the Israeli side, they always cite Hamas being a quote-unquote terrorist organization. I don't know if the Palestinians see them as terrorists. I think the Palestinians see them as people who are really fighting for their freedom and not necessarily as terrorists. But when you speak to other international countries, they will quote Hamas as being a terrorist organization. So long as Hamas is representing the Palestinians, which clearly is what they did over the last 7 to 10 days, it wasn't the PLO, it was Hamas that actually had the victory, so-called victory, and not so much the PLO. As long as Hamas is fronting the Palestinians, do you see that there will be any success for the Palestinians politically? I mean, will there need to be some kind of change in the fronting of so-called Palestinian leadership before things move forward? You're on mute, Hamza. Sorry, I can't hear you yet. Let's try again. One more time. Oh, we can't hear your sound. That's not good. Your sound is not coming through to us. So let's come back to you, Hamza. Let's try to get you reconnected, and we'll come back to you in a moment. But let me send that question to Ismail. Same question to you, Ismail Patel.
Well, Israel has occupied Palestinians, as I mentioned earlier, 73 years ago when there was no Hamas. Israel carried out the Nakba, Shabra and Shatila massacre, Deir Yassin, the occupation of Masjid al-Aqsa. There was no Hamas. So Hamas is a fig leaf that Israel has always used an excuse to carry on with their occupation, the subjugation, and the intimidation of the Palestinian people. As to the mandate of the Hamas, well, it's one of the political parties in Palestine, as we have political parties in this country. And whoever forms the government, then that takes the mandate. And no government has an overall majority within a democracy. So yes, the Hamas is not a majority, it's not in government, but in the last election, they did win the majority of the vote. And that's why the West did not like Palestinians deciding democratically that they wanted Hamas to rule them. And that's why they imposed sanctions on Gaza. So let's be very, very frank here that the West wanted democracy, but they wanted democracy on their terms. They're using Hamas as a fig leaf. And there is nothing that Israel has done in the past that can show us that if Hamas was not there, they would not do it. So I cannot buy this idea that Hamas is the reason. And if Hamas was out of the equation, all of a sudden Israel would become, very generous to the Palestinians and give them their independence. It is completely the reverse. Israel will carry on doing what it's doing and carry on with its occupation until it's destroyed the whole infrastructure, and the Palestinian people are totally ethnically cleansed from the Mandate Palestine region. So I think the idea of Hamas and the employment of Hamas is simply a tool in the hands of the Israelis, and I think we have to be very, very careful not to walk down that path. Otherwise, we will start thinking like the Zionists on this as well.
Yeah, I mean, but the so-called Zionists, the Israelis will say that, hang on a second, this recent conflict that happened, there were 3,000, I don't know, nobody was counting the rockets, but let's just say there were 3,000 rockets that were sent from Gaza City across to Israel. They will say that this has come from Hamas, and so long as Hamas is doing this, there's a terrorist threat, and then countries like the US and others will say Israel has the right to defend itself and give it free rein to do what it's done over the last 7 days, which is indiscriminately bomb buildings that, frankly, where 99% of the occupants have nothing to do with the conflict. I mean, how do you resolve that?
Sure, that's very simple, because your whole premise of the question and the idea emerges from a colonialist concept that somehow the colonizer who occupies a people has every right to defend themselves, not the colonized.
Yeah, good point.
And this has been the history of the British people. This has been the history of the Americans recently when they're going across the world, bombing Afghanistan, Iraq, when Britain occupied India and South Africa and Southern America.
So Ismail Patel, what you're saying is that Hamas is a reaction to the occupation.
Absolutely.
It's a reaction. It's not actually something they're starting. It's actually a reaction to the illegal occupation in the first place.
So Hamas is, in a way, I want to even go beyond that. Hamas is simply a word we have given to a group. What they're doing is resisting. We have to ask ourselves a simple question. Have the occupied people a right to resist? That's it. If you think that if your house is occupied, you get thrown out of your house and you have a right to defend yourself, then that group can be any group, a name of any group. Yeah. So Hamas is simply a name that has been given to a group that is resisting occupation. There will be another group that comes after that. What will we do then? Are we going to carry on? And as Shukri mentioned, we have to have certain basic ground rules of how we govern ourselves. And the basic ground rule we have given throughout the world is that the people who are occupied, and this is according to Geneva Convention and UN resolution, have a right to resist. And if they have a right to resist, then we have to give that to the Palestinians as well. We can't allow Palestinians to be occupied and at the same time deny them the right to resist.
Fully understood. Thank you for sharing that, Ismail Patel. Let me try and get on Hamza and Tariq Khamis as well, because we've only got 5 minutes left. So Hamza, back to you and giving your reaction to my original question. Hopefully we can hear you now, inshallah. Oh no, we can't hear you. Let's try one more time. Oh no, the audio fairies are not on our side today with your mic, Hamza. We'll try again in a moment, inshallah. But let me go to Tariq Khamis, who is actually part of the Luton Palestine Solidarity Campaign. And Tariq, I must say, mashallah, you guys had a massive demonstration, I think just over a week ago, where lots of people turned out. What's the mood like in Luton regarding the current situation? And tell us a bit more about what you've been observing so far.
Yes, I mean, the Luton people have shown tremendous support for the Palestinians, and we're very proud of Luton. We're trying to get as you know, get the council to fly the Palestinian flag in solidarity. There's some issues, some rules changes need to be made. We're hoping the councils will do that, and there's a lot of pressure for them to do that. We're also been building, as you know, there's a demonstration tomorrow to stop arming Israel by PSC, Friends of Alaska and others, Stop the War, from 1 p.m. in Victoria Embankment in London. If everybody who can come down to that, we're all meeting up on trains and going down together. We have the Luton PSC banner there, and the more the people from Luton go to show the Luton support, we're hoping it will be a very big demonstration tomorrow to show our government and show the world that this tragedy really for the Palestinians and oppression must stop, and that our government should not be complicit in any way with the illegal human rights abuses and war crimes done by Israel, and it has to be shown very strongly. So the more people that turn up, you can do something. There might be what they call a ceasefire in effect in the murder of the Gaza people, but the murder of the Palestinians happens every day. With the coronavirus, they refuse letting the vaccines in. They still do, and this war and situation is making it even worse. This could be tantamount to you could almost, some people say it's genocide. We have to be careful how we use these words, but it's something we have to sort of point out that that policy is killing people, and if you're deliberately killing people, then it can be called genocide. And definitely what you have is an apartheid state, and that has to be called out. And the boycott, disinvestment, and sanctions campaign has to be supported 100%. And more people.
Just really quickly, Tariq, because we've only got 30 seconds left, but really quickly, when is that demonstration? Is happening on Saturday, the 22nd of May at 1 p.m.
Yeah. At 1 p.m. tomorrow, assembling at Victoria Embankment and marching to Hyde Park. So if everybody can get down there, please do. You know, we need your support. And mustn't stop. This must be continuous, because the Palestinian people, their suffering is continuous.
All right, well, gents, let me go ahead and thank all of you for joining. Ismail Patel, Brother Shokri, Dr. Melanie Garson, Hamza Ali Shah, even though we couldn't hear him, unfortunately, but we'll get him on next week, and Dara Khamis. Jazakallah khair to all of you for joining us on tonight's program, and take care of yourselves. Thank you so much for sharing the perspectives. All right, listeners, this has been Friday Night Live with me, Abdul Akbar, and Zafar Iqbal Saab. What can I say? What an amazing program, and what interesting perspectives. Whatever you're doing, brothers and sisters, one thing I ask of you is keep our Palestinian brothers and sisters in your du'as. Du'a is a very powerful tool, and certainly Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala hears the du'a of those who are oppressed. And there is no doubt in my mind that there is oppression happening in the land of Palestine, and may Allah make it easy for them and everyone who is suffering around the world. Ameen. Until next time, my name is Abdul Akbar. Take care of yourselves. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.